So please make Murray welcome.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I should say that my predecessor, the first AIDS ambassador, was in the same office as me at Queensland University, and the head of AusAid, Bruce Davis, was studying down the corner. So we've pretty much taken over the aid program, at least for a brief period. Thanks for coming tonight. It's a great pleasure to host this event. This is an incredibly important topic, and there's an excellent range of speakers, which I'll try not to preempt in any way. Let me just briefly, though, I think, run through some of the key issues from the Australian government's point of view. The MDGs really are the first truly global agreed targets for development outcomes, and they were deliberately put forward both to marshal commitments by donors, but also to be able to clearly measure the outcomes in meeting the goals. And they were put forward in a time when there was a lot of donor fatigue, as it was called. Hard to remember now. But in the mid-90s particularly, it was a very difficult time. So we of course, the Government of Australia is heavily committed to these goals. And if my scrolling mechanism doesn't work, you'll hear no more from me. Here we go. Now, you're going to hear in detail about it, but let me just do a few snapshots. Many countries in the Pacific won't meet these important goals. Some governments are struggling to deliver on a lot of the effective public services that are needed. Only Samoa is likely to meet all the development goals, while other countries like PNG, the Solomon Islands and Timor-Leste are really well off track. Over the region, this region will achieve the poverty reduction goal, but that's really figures from China and Vietnam and Thailand, dwarfing everything else, of course, the smaller economies. And whilst I'll talk particularly about East Asia Pacific, because that's mainly where Australia's aid program is focused, the government is increasingly focusing on Africa as well, but you'll forgive me if my examples are particularly about this region. In 2006, 4 million children under the age of 5 died in South Asia, East Asia and the Pacific, second only to the situation in sub-Saharan Africa. According to the World Health Organization, 13 Asian countries, together with PNG and East Timor, account for 53% of the world's neonatal deaths and 44% of the world's annual maternal deaths. And both of these are horrific figures, of course, but it's in our hands to do something about it, as you'll hear from the others. Because the MDGs are goals, they're not a strategy to achieve these outcomes, so there's an awful lot of work goes underneath that, and it takes all sorts of things, effective partnerships, working efficiently with what monies do exist, be they aid or national government monies, and focusing on the strategic priorities, which is why I just want to take a few minutes to tell you what the government is doing and planning to do, particularly since it involves your dollars as taxpayers. Just in education in particular, MDGs 2 and 3 relate to universal primary education and equitable access for girls and women. And there are sub-goals, and there's other campaigns like Education for All that the government has also subscribed to with the World Bank. That provides a comprehensive overview of approaches to improving education, but some 9 million kids are still out of school in East Asia and the Pacific, never get to school. Literacy rates very close to this country are very low, particularly East Timor, under 50%, certainly for women. So there's an awfully long way to go in education. I should note, by the way, that an enormous amount gets spent on education by the Australian Aid Program, not just primary. Minister Smith, the Foreign Minister, who is our Minister, of course, recently opened the 1,000th lower secondary school we have built with Indonesia, in Java and eastern Indonesia. And over the next couple of years, we'll finish 2,000 schools, which, if you do your rough maths, at 1,000 kids per year, a lot of kids are going to get to lower secondary that will never had that opportunity before. Just turning to health, I've confessed to the organiser that